Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. It looks to be a pretty dismal jobs report coming this Friday because Jen Psaki and the Biden White House are already trying to do spin for the purposes of damage control. You know, that Omicron variant. It's Omicron, not lockdowns.
It's the stealth Omicron. Please get it right.
ADP, which is often not terribly accurate. The numbers diverge sometimes quite significantly between the ADP payroll, the ADP jobs number effectively, which is out today, versus the Labor Department's job number. Payroll's contracting by more than 300,000, according to ADP this morning. What are we to expect on Friday, and how are we to interpret it? We'll start there with our friend Steve Moore, joins us for a weekly conversation, a Wall Street Journal columnist, Trumponomics, and Govzilla author. Govzilla, his new book. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Steve, are you there?
Steve.
Was it something we said?
Sorry, I was on mute. How you guys doing?
All right, technology.
So let me start with the good news and then the bad news. So the good news is I'm still doing cartwheels over the news yesterday that Joe Manchin officially declared Build Back Better dead. He said it's dead and it's not going to rise from the ashes. Now, he's a politician, and he could change his mind, but there's no way that they can pass Build Back Better. Of course, I'm talking about the $5 trillion monstrosity bill that would have massively increased the IRS budget and raised taxes to the highest level, in 50 years and provided welfare benefits for illegal immigrants. I could speak for half an hour about the horrible features of that. But he said it's dead. And that means, if he sticks to that, there is no Build Back Better bill, which is, that is a relief because that bill would have really killed the economy. Now, I don't know if it's coincidence or not that he made that declaration the same day that the Congressional Budget Office announced that the national debt now, when you include the Social Security and Medicare unfunded liabilities, $30 trillion. $30 trillion. That's more the money than Amy makes in 3 years, right?
Yeah,
$30 trillion.
Well, first of all,
can you imagine that $30 trillion? That's three with 13 zeros.
Yeah, and when the beginning of the Trump administration, it was like what, 21 trillion. So we've really done a job in the last 5 years. But the 30 trillion, of course, is not the real story, because the real story is $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Yeah. I mean, you've got these massive debts. And, if Joe Biden were to call me tomorrow and say, what do we do? Because, by the way, the other news that came out just about 15 minutes ago was that, you just mentioned it, that the ADP jobs number, negative 300,000. Now, that is, by the way, I guarantee you that Joe Biden and his economic minions are going to say, "Oh, well, that's because of the virus." The virus. No, partly it is, but the bigger factor behind the loss of jobs is the vaccine mandate. Where did that come from? Oh, yeah, that was Biden. That is keeping hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Americans off the job.
Yeah, but now that they've dropped the, OSHA requiring it and checking companies with 100 or more, now that they dropped that, shouldn't these companies be hiring people back? I mean, Delta Airlines is, Starbucks is, and there's another corporation.
I don't know. Hershey's and T-Mobile are firing people still.
You mean because
they're still imposing a vaccine mandate just because OSHA isn't mandating that you still have companies doing it. Right.
And by the way, Amy, you're right that because the federal mandate is no longer in existence, you'd see some hiring back. But a lot, as Dan was saying, there are not just private companies. Like if a private company wants to require a vaccine, as a condition of employment, I don't have a problem with that. It's their company. If they want to have that rule, that's fine. What I object to is the United States federal government imposing that rule. And now you've got a lot of states that are doing it too. By the way, the blue states, of course, the red states don't have those mandates. We've got two different economies today, and blue state economies are still up and really closed down, and you don't see the vibrancy. And you go to states like Florida and Texas, and you see everything completely back to normal. But look, I'm going to say one thing about Build Back Better. I will not believe that bill is officially dead and buried with salt on the soil until January of 2023, when Nancy Pelosi no longer has the gavel in the House.
Well, okay, but we still have a problem, which is that Republican Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi is working across the aisle to come up with yet another relief package for tens of billions of dollars for restaurants, and of course that will expand significantly.
How stupid is this?
Right.
How stupid is this? I mean, by the way, we have spent just under $4 trillion in 2 years. $4 trillion on all these bailouts and all of these efforts to combat the virus. $4 trillion. And you really have to wonder. I mean, this was the subject of my weekly column this week. Would we have been any worse off from a health perspective if the government had done nothing? I'm serious. What if the government had just said, we've got responsible businesses, we've got responsible people, they can make their own health decisions. We don't need the government to intervene. If a restaurant wants to shut down, fine. If a restaurant wants to stay open, that's fine. Why in the world did we have the government exercise the extraordinary powers that are unprecedented in the history of our country, and then we still got all these variants? Would fewer people have died? Yeah. I don't think so. I think most of the things, and I'm on a rant here, but most of the things they told us, the quote science unquote 2 years ago, has turned out to be wrong.
Right. And the restaurant owners here in Chicago, they could save themselves by not agreeing to go along with these vaccine mandates, but they are.
True.
And the restaurant business is crushed. Nobody, even vaccinated people, are against showing their personal information to some 16-year-old, kid at the front desk. They don't want to do it. And so the bars are there. Yeah. I mean, the bars and restaurants are empty in Chicago. And now they're asking the federal government, they're asking Congress and Biden for another bailout.
And here's my strategy on this. We have to start calling those vaccine mandates where you have to show your passport and an ID. That's a racist policy, isn't it, Dan? I mean, my goodness. The left doesn't want IDs, photo IDs for voting, because those are racist. So why isn't it a racist when, I went out to a restaurant the other night. Not only did I have to show my vaccine passport, I had to show a valid ID that validated that I was that person on the. Aren't those vaccine mandates racist?
Yeah, something else too. Maybe we need to start saying we need to have a conversation among us alleged adults in this country. The 30 trillion, which is, more like 130 trillion when you include the unfunded liabilities, which is what the honest number is, combined with the COVID policies. What do they have in similarity with one another? It is all the old imposing upon the young. Old imposing sacrifices among the young. We're going to use you as spare parts for our entitlement benefits. We're going to use you as spare parts for our perception of safety. So maybe it's time to, I know, dare anybody criticize, the senior citizens because they're the voters. But it's time to say to you COVIDian seniors, to you seniors who think that Medicare and Social Security, particularly Medicare, is a free lunch. You are doing irreparable damage to your children and your grandchildren. So grow up, because we're going to have to change things around here, and you're going to, start having to, live within your means. When you look at what you contribute in versus what you get out, say, of Medicare. When's that conversation going to happen? Who's going to be ballsy enough to have that one?
Well, you're going to wait a long time for that. But I will say this, that if you look, let's just talk about all the COVID policies over the last 2 years. Who have been the biggest losers from all these policies?
The young.
So let's make
the young.
First
right.
of all, the young children. I mean, what we've done to our children is, the greatest episode of national child abuse in our country's history. I mean, we're going to spend 30 years. These kids are 7 or 8, 9, 10 years old. We've done irreparable damage to them. A whole year and a half without schooling. Second group, minorities and low-income people. Look, if you look at the left office talk about the divide between the rich and poor, the people who really got crushed by all of these lockdowns and all these policies were the lowest income people. And finally, you look at the what's happened with the left was, big business, we hate big business, big corporate America. Well, corporate America came out of COVID smelled like a rose. It wasn't big businesses. It wasn't Walmart. It wasn't Walgreens. It wasn't Google. It wasn't, Apple that was shut down. It was the local hardware stores and the local stores and the small businesses that got crushed. So everything that we did with COVID actually benefited, the people that the left. He was always talking about social justice.
Right.
There was no social justice
Right.
with regard to what we did.
Which is why Kevin McCarthy, what he said about decoupling the Republican Party, the House Republicans, from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce was so important. And if Republicans are smart, they will trumpet that from the rooftops, because that's exactly what should be done.
They won't. They won't. They love the chamber. They genuflect at the. I hope you're right, but I've been in this town a long time.
I know.
Republicans always cave in to the corporatists at the Chamber of Commerce, and we wouldn't be in this fix if the Chamber of Commerce hadn't helped 20 to 25 Democrats get elected to Congress. We wouldn't have Nancy Pelosi as Speaker today.
Well, we're gonna, and again, we're seeing in Canada. Yes, there's a lot of focus on Trudeau, but the subtext is focus on Erin O'Toole and the Conservative Party and a reckoning for the lack of an opposition party here. Well, you're not going to seize the opportunity that the Democrat Socialists have presented if you don't present yourself as an honest opposition party. I'm talking about Republicans in this country. And it's not just with respect to decoupling from the chamber and these rent-seeking big businesses that are in bed with big government, but also this story, too. I mean, Peter Schweitzer, in an honest world, he would get a Pulitzer Prize. His new book, Red Handed, which focuses on the Biden family and their dealings with the Chinese communists, also includes this little nugget. 23 former U.S. senators and congressmen who lobby for the Chinese military or Chinese intelligence-linked companies.
Wow.
And it's mostly Republicans. And at the top of that list, former House Speaker John Boehner. There needs to be a big public decoupling from those Republicans who decide that, me getting paid is more important than our party in power to do something important for middle America and those striving to get to middle America. If you're not going to be courageous enough to draw those lines, then frankly you don't deserve to be in power.
Yeah, and they're putting our national security in risk. I want to make a point, though, if I may, about what you just mentioned about what's happening in Canada. That is one of the biggest political events of the year. And the American media is not paying much attention to this. But for folks who aren't, on top of this, there was a caravan that was 15 miles long, of truckers that are protesting these vaccine mandates and these heavy-handed draconian COVID restrictions. And there were tens and tens of thousands of Canadians lining the streets cheering on these truckers. Now, what's interesting about this is two things. Number one, the fact that the American media is not paying much attention to this, and I've been to Ottawa. Ottawa's they're marching on the Capitol. That's an incredible number of people out there. Canada's not that huge a country. Number two, the response, to the extent that the media has responded at all to this, of the American media, especially like the Washington Post, New York Times, and others, and then the Canadian media, is been extraordinary. How dare these people defy the edicts of the government? Don't they know the science? These people we have to stop them. We have to stop them. These are insurrectionists. I'm like, oh my God, these are the same people who say how much they care about middle-class America. This isn't the elite rich. These are middle-class, working-class truckers who are objecting to these liberal policies, and the left is like, the media is so crazy. The kind of people in the media today, during Tiananmen Square, they would have been on the side of the Chinese government, for goodness sake.
Well, so they didn't learn anything from Brexit, and they didn't learn anything from Trump, and they're not going to learn anything from. So if you, again, you're the guy talking to these people, if you tell them to be courageous and stand with the truckers and stand with parents in places like Loudoun County, then they're going to be successful and deliver an electoral throttling to the left. If they muddy the distinctions, they're not.
Amen to that. And Amy, I got to say one other thing. My wife told me this last month, our home heating bill, $600, twice what we paid last year. Inflation is real. It's killing us.
Steve
I hear
Moore.
you. Mine was over 300, but it's I don't know what's going to happen.
And the beat goes on. Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, Trumponomics, and Govzilla, his new book, author. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Famous conservative quotes presented by Automated Systems.
A quote from Winston Churchill: "You don't make the poor richer by making the rich poorer."
Listen, to all you manufacturing companies out there, I encourage you to call my friend Laz Coolshar from Automated Systems. Automated Systems is a software and system integration company that specializes in companies that are required to meet the FDA numerous compliances and requirements. Automated Systems will create a custom solution for your business that will make your production lines, your facilities, and your plants run more efficiently. Imagine less downtime, more speed, and